All right. Welcome back to the Black Politics Show. My name is Hutch. On the other side of the mic is my man Bryce. Say what's good to him.
Yup.
My dog did not hear me. He did though.
I
For sure. For sure.
had to pull up my
That's a bet.
evidence and my links. I was focused on that.
Type time. We always want to give y'all, you feel me, good information, verified information. So he just looking out for y'all for real. Um, to start this episode, I'm gonna actually talk about President Trump's vice president selection. His name is JD Vance. So here we go. On Monday, July 15th, former President Trump made his vice president selection for the 2024 election. And his announcement actually came on Truth Social, which is Trump's personal online platform. Because as we remember, for a while there, he was pretty much banned on everything. Following January 6th, he was banned on Twitter, Instagram, all that. So he ended up making his own social media platform. But JD Vance is a senator from Ohio, and he accepted the nomination at the Republican National Convention. This selection of JD Vance by Trump looks to help him in swing states like Chicago, oh, not Chicago, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, and Minnesota, as well as Pennsylvania, where there's a concentration of farmers. So those really Midwest states where it's kind of rural, JD Vance is kind of like his ticket to hopefully swinging them in his way. JD Vance now becomes the first millennial to be a part of a major party's campaign ticket because he's only 39. And this looks to add a lot of youth to the Republican Party. So I know they're looking for a future past Trump, that 2028 election. I think if they like what JD Vance does, they'll probably really get behind him to be their next presidential pick. This pick was interesting because JD Vance was actually a critic of Donald Trump in 2016, and he had called Trump a total fraud, and then even went as far as to call Trump America's Hitler, which is insane. Insane. Vance eventually ran for Ohio's senator seat in 2022, and of course, once he started running for that seat under the Republican Party, he changed his mind on Trump and started defending Trump's political policies and all these other, and really defended Trump's character. And this eventually got him Trump's endorsement in the Senate race. And that led to JD Vance becoming the senator of Ohio. A little bit more about JD Vance. He was in the Marine Corps and he served in Iraq. He later graduated from Ohio State University and then he graduated from Yale Law School. He's worked in investment for tongue tie. He's worked in investment firms and he's opened his own nonprofit in Ohio that looks to combat the opioid epidemic. He has written two books, one called Hillbilly Elegy and another called a Memoir of a Family and Culture in Crisis. This election by former President Trump is an important mark for the Republican Party as it seems to shift the party's stance on war to one of anti-war. Vance is a strong opponent for the aid being sent to Ukraine and has continuously talked about Joe Biden sending this aid over to Ukraine and basically just chewing them out for it. Trump has also said that it's to keep the U.S. out of these forever wars like Ukraine, like Israel, and if the trend continues, China. By selecting Vance, he kind of solidified this anti-war stance, and which is interesting because a lot of Americans are very much leaning anti-war, do not want to be in these wars, and this is really the first time in a while that the Republican Party has had this type of stance on war because usually they're the war party. Um, I believe the shift in Republican ideology will be interesting because a lot of young voters are against this war in a sense. And before this, the Democratic Party really had a lock on the young vote, especially the black young vote. Joe Biden didn't really do the things he promised, like getting rid of student debt and a bunch of other things. This kind of made young voters turn on Biden. Obviously, Joe Biden just dropped out of this election, so he will not be running for re-election. And I think it just leaves a question mark on younger voters. Obviously, going to push for the Democratic Party. I mean, young people are usually Democrats, not Democrats, but they lean more liberal. And I think it's just interesting. Will Kamala Harris have the full support of young voters? She even have the full support of Black voters? I'm not sure. And yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on JD Vance. I mean, he seems like an interesting guy. I know he's very, very, very conservative in the sense, and he looks. I mean, Trump kind of went with him because he's not as well known. Like, who is this? Pence, Trump's former VP Pence was kind of plugged in, and he didn't want to do some of the things that Trump wanted to do. Whereas I think this guy, JD Vance, will do everything Trump wants him to do to hopefully lock him in for the 2028 election, as he pretty much agrees with a lot of Trump's stances on policies. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on it.
I think it's actually pretty interesting. And so my biggest issue with him is it kind of goes back to the last conversation that we or like the last episode that we have about like how do you have very wealthy investment firm workers and employees in say private equity or venture capital that are representing the average American. So kind of looking a bit more into his career because I was interested in it. He he lived in San Francisco to be a venture capitalist and then ultimately started his own venture capital fund based out of Ohio to provide underserved regions. So basically, like everywhere that's not San Francisco or New York, the opportunity for venture capital. So I think that that's pretty interesting. But then also, it's like it's not I don't know. It's long gone are like the days of like just conservatives that are more so focused on like less taxes, smaller government, et cetera. Like I think that it actually is not a horrible choice. I know like a lot of people were saying it's a horrible choice, but I don't think it's that bad because he is from a kind of I will say swing state. I know like Ohio can kind of go either way because they have a lot of large kind of diverse cities, but then they have a lot of rural areas and a lot of blue collar workers. So that really throws things in the air. And I think that it was kind of wise for Trump to pick JD Vance. But then on top of that, I think that it was also a position where I just know from my perspective, looking at the optics of it and seeing how Trump kind of turned on Pence in that last kind of J6 like and I don't think we honestly I don't think we'll ever know the full context behind what happened, but just kind of seeing how like Pence was kind of gonna be the next target after they like after things happened. I don't know that a lot of people were vying for that position. And that's one of the things I was discussing earlier with someone. It's like if after seeing like you're like because basically Trump is his employer at this point. So basically, after seeing your former employer kind of screw over like the last guy that was in that position, how many people are going to be like, "Yeah, I totally want this position"?
See, I
Um,
thought, and that's what I was saying. Like Vance, and that's what, like I feel like Vance will do what Pence won't do because Vance is really still trying to make a name for himself for real. You feel me? Like he won't like he'll sign on those policies. Like even after January, he might have pushed January 6th. We don't know what Vance is going to do. Like you said, this is kind of his employer. He gave him the cosign. Really, Trump, the reason he in politics right now. Like you definitely bring up some interesting points.
Yeah, but I will say, kind of going off his record or whatnot, I will say that he has tried to be bipartisan, which is really interesting to me. So two bills in particular that I support. So he co-sponsored a bill with Senator Warnock out of Georgia to lower the price of insulin, which is a life-saving drug for a lot of Americans. And then he also collaborated with Senator Warren out of Massachusetts to basically take back executive pay when big banks kind of fail, instead of bailing them out and still giving like the executives those big paychecks, kind of taking that money back. And so I think that honestly, like from a conservative standpoint, that is pretty liberal as far as kind of politics go, because one, kind of creating a ceiling to how much insulin is, that is kind of bordering on socialism. And then also discussing like as far as taking back money from individuals that work for these big corporations that are being bailed out, that's also kind of the public sector stepping into the private sector and telling them what to do and how to do it. So it's very interesting. It's I personally don't, I don't know, like it's I have mixed feelings on him personally, and but from what I've seen, like I'm not totally against him and I'm not totally for him, of course. But I think that can be said about pretty much any politician.
I was actually very surprised that Trump picked him. I thought Trump was gonna go with Vivek, or I don't know, somebody that like the people kind of knew his face already, knew kind of where they stood on things. So like to come completely out of right field and pick a essentially a brand new senator. I mean, he hasn't been in office long. He joined the Senate in 2022. Like I kind of get it to where it's like he's still tapped in with the everyday people. He's not really above people, like you said. He's lowering prices on insulin and taking back executive back pay and all these other things. I agree. Like mixed feelings. I don't know what to really feel about him, but I know right now, I saw some earlier on the news. He's not really polling too well with Republicans. I think that'll obviously change once they get really into the swing of things with this campaign. But yeah, he's definitely an interesting pick, and this race is definitely getting very interesting with Joe Biden dropped out. I know you got more information on that, but
Yeah, so I think that this actually kind of kind of segues into the next story. So, of course, I think one of the big reasons that he was picked, even though he didn't have like the kind of experience and not a lot of people knew who he was prior to this pick or whatnot, I think that it is important because the Rust Belt states are going to be what changes the election, I feel like. And so like your states, your Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, I think those are going to be the states that really determine the election, because they are very, very blue in the cores of those states. And so, of course, like Pennsylvania, you got Philly and Pittsburgh. Those are very blue, highly dense areas. But then you also have large swaths of very conservative farming communities, smaller communities, etc. And it's the same in all of those Midwestern states where you have pretty much like one or two cities that dominates the state, and those are kind of the large liberal cities. But then you have large swaths of conservative areas. And so you can see that Detroit in Michigan, or Columbus, Cleveland, and Cincinnati in Ohio, where Senator Vance is from, Indianapolis and Indiana, etc. And so I think kind of segueing into Joe Biden dropping out, discussing Kamala Harris and her kind of run for presidency, and then kind of tying that back to her VP pick. And so I'll start with that. I think if the Dems really want to have a chance in this election, they need to pick a strong contender from one of those kind of Rust Belt states. And so I think that a good option would be, there's a couple options that I would say would be good options, even outside of the Rust Belt, but I would say Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania, because people seem to like what he's done. He has pretty good approval. Of course, Gretchen Whitmer, out of the governor of Michigan, she said she wasn't going to be interested in it. I think Roy Cooper, which is another swing state, North Carolina, he said he wasn't going to be interested, if I'm correct. So it's a pretty narrow
you
list,
think
I
they'd
will
ever
be
go?
honest.
You think they'd go with Buttigieg, also
I
from
don't think that
Ohio?
that would be wise, because
You,
I'll be honest, I don't think America is ready for a mixed woman president and a gay vice president. I don't see it happening.
yeah, it's a
Um,
stretch. It's a stretch for sure.
yeah, so I don't see, because we already saw what happened with Hillary. and she was, and I hate to say it, she was a white woman. So, and
Facts.
she was unlikable, of course, before all of this, and then she had the
Facts.
Clinton last name. But I think it's going to be even more difficult for a woman of color, and I'll say just of color because it depends on kind of which audience she's talking to, which color she is.
Yeah.
But I'll just say a woman of color is already going to be difficult enough. I think that for her, and I hate to say it this way, if she wants to win, she needs to find a straight white man that
You think
can.
Gavin Newsom, or you think
I don't
he's
think
trying to put his
that
head
would
in
be
president?
good either because I had a friend that mentioned that, and he was essentially like a California, all California ticket is going to be horrible because I mean, especially amongst people that are kind of on the borderline. And let's say you're a bit older, less informed, all you watch is Fox News. You're seeing the worst stuff come out of California right now. How
Facts.
all of these immigrants are getting thousands of dollars to live when other people are paying 2,800 for a one bedroom, or you're seeing like the worst parts of San Francisco, not realizing that like, yeah, you're seeing pictures of like 3 blocks of the Tenderloin area of San Francisco or 3 blocks of Civic Center, where yeah, it's not a good area and there's a lot of poverty and a lot of drug usage, but that goes on literally everywhere in the country. And so you're seeing these cherry picked things. And so a lot of people that are uninformed, if they hear a San Francisco DA and a California, ex-California governor, they're going to think, oh, they're going to make the rest of the country like California. And I don't think that that's going to be a good sell either. Um, and so I don't think Gavin Newsom should be considered. I really think that it needs to be kind of a Democratic leader from the Rust Belt or from a swing state like say North Carolina. Trying to think of another kind of good example, another swing state that would really be helpful to have in this election. I would say North Carolina or Pennsylvania would be the best bet. But kind of going into her, I think at first, when I heard that Kamala Harris was going to be the main runner for the Democratic Party, I was like, oh shit. Because quite frankly, I honestly,
Facts. Facts.
I I'm worried about her viability, and I'm now much less worried about her viability than I was on Saturday or Sunday when it came out. Um, but when I first heard it, because I remember how Tulsi Gabbard, I forgot what her Tulsi Gabbard, I think. She really kind of she had her in the chokehold during the 2020 debates or 2019 debates going into that 2020 election for the Democratic primaries. And so we've seen Tulsi Gabbard is not, I wouldn't say a Democrat. She's very independent on a lot of things. And so seeing that and how people saw her kind of her record as far as prison reform in California, I think that it wasn't the best rep, if that makes sense, because you got this woman that's like, I'm a black woman, I'm an AKA, I went to Howard. And then my first initial kind of thoughts of her were this is a black woman, HBCU, D9, and she's out here putting away black men for like petty marijuana offenses. I had to do
Facts.
my own research because at first I was like, I can't support that, and I hate both of the options. Like, and so I was like, all right, but I did a little bit more research into her background, and I actually do think that some of the things that she did were actually very helpful for not only just Black Californians but everybody in California. And so some of those things just kind of off top of head. So she was never pro death penalty, which I mean that can be good or bad in certain circumstances. Um, she also only prosecuted 3 strike offenders in violent felonies. So California has this thing where essentially if you get 3 felonies, you're able to be jailed for life. So that can be kind of smaller crimes. Say you got caught for selling marijuana 3 times. That's 3 felonies right there. And so there were people prior to her that were spending their lives in jail for these very petty offenses. So she, of course, tried to only prosecute 3rd strike offenders in the cases of violent felonies, so like rapes, murders, etc. And so, funny enough, everybody questioning her competency from the right, it was shown that Donald Trump and I believe it was Ivanka as well gave money to Kamala Harris, like her campaign when she was Attorney General. So yeah, Donald Trump gave $6,000, and this is per the New York Times, and his daughter Ivanka Trump gave $2,000. So it's kind of funny that people, or at least him, for example, was saying, "Hey, she's not tough on crime. She's gonna cause the rest of the country to kind of dissolve into crime, yada yada, all these things," but clearly had no issue supporting her less than 10 years ago, 2014. So, or 10 years exactly. So I think that that's pretty interesting as well. But I did have to do my own research because I had heard all of these horrible things about how she was locking black men up for just marijuana offenses. And so, from my understanding and what I've researched, a lot of those marijuana based offenses were marijuana in addition to other things. So it wasn't just, hey, you're selling a dub or whatnot, and you got jailed, thrown in prison. It was more so, hey, you committed a robbery and you happen to have marijuana on you, and so to get you put away from the maximum time, they added that marijuana offense. Um, and so it's I don't think that she has gotten the best of rep, but I think now that we're seeing kind of a change. Um, and I think that her conviction rate was good, especially for violent crimes. And I think that the Republicans are very California isn't tough on crime. She's not going to be tough on crime. San Francisco is this horrible city, and I think that she's proven that she had a 90% conviction rate for felony gun violations. And so and she also created other things that were outside of just arresting people for those type of issues. So one thing that I'm reading here, she created a hate crimes group, inspired by a young man that was murdered by two men based on his sexuality. And then also she has done quite a bit of reform for reentry and trying to uh, keep people from kind of that revolving cycle of jail back to the streets, jail back to the streets, jail back to the streets. And so I definitely I was a bit worried at first when I heard about all of this, especially kind of given that I think in 2020 or 2019, I guess I'd say, her campaign was essentially stopped because we only heard, well, you arrested a bunch of black men for marijuana. Yes, the black men were arrested for marijuana, but these were marijuana in addition to harder crimes. So I can't necessarily be mad at that. So
Right.
I don't know. Like I think it's really a toss in the air. And
I
I'm
just
much more confident now with her running. But
She's getting a lot of funding. I saw Nikki Haley gave her some bread too towards her campaign. I think she's at like 1 million already raised in campaign funds. And I don't know if America ready for a woman president. And you make it on top, she looked black. She looked like a black person. So it's like that too. Like you said earlier, like Hillary ran and obviously crooked Hillary, like people weren't fucking with Hillary before that. But like still she was a white woman and she still ain't really get the vote. And so I'm concerned. She has Biden's endorsement. She doesn't have Obama's endorsement though. And I feel like that kind of leaves room open to maybe they might try to plug somebody else in there. They might try to, like you said, get a white male to be her vice president, which would also be interesting. You know, the Republicans are going to be have a field day with that. I feel like, and I got mixed feelings on her too. I don't trust either party for real. I think she gonna get in office and keep doing what Biden was doing, and Biden wasn't doing shit. We living through inflation right now. We in forever wars right now. I mean, God, like shit
to
not
be
good right
fair,
now.
I hear that a lot from a lot of people. Like the inflation is horrible. And I'm gonna just put on because being an economics student during that whole
Right.
time was quite interesting. So I'm gonna go back to just my macroeconomics roots. And so essentially what happened was so we gave all these people thousands of dollars to sit on their ass. And so we were expecting them to buy stuff when many of these people, and not only just like the stimulus checks, but states also had unemployment. So during that pandemic, at least like kind of like the first year, if you were unemployed, you could get unemployment from your state, but then you could also get like the like set of stimulus checks that they were handing out. So of course, a lot of people they were, buying new cars, buying just different stuff, but a lot of people saved that money. So the amount of money that was in circulation increased drastically because typically when people get money, they spend money. So let's say, I don't know, somebody give you 10K right now. You just go take a vacation with 2,000 of it. You buy like I don't know, like you put a down payment on a car for 5,000 and you might save 1 or 2,000. So typically, the money that you get will be circulated back into the economy. So Trump gave all this money out, expecting people to have this money circulating in the economy. People sitting at home, they gonna buy Amazon. They just scrolling through Amazon all day. They gonna buy different stuff. And that's not what happened. People were so uncertain of like what the hell is going on. They just saved the money. And then also most people couldn't go nowhere. Like, of course, like you had like states like Texas, but if you were like in California, everything was on lockdown until like mid 2021. So, and then even here, because we had our governor was a physician. So we were basically like, I wouldn't say on full lockdown, but like a lot of stuff was not open until like later that year. So people weren't out just like, oh, I'm gonna go, spend all this money. So it ended up being a situation where we had all of this money in circulation, and then we had low interest rates for everything. So cars had low interest rates, houses had low interest rates. And so just to put this in perspective, the interest rate for a house back in 2020, 2021, a lot of people were buying houses because the interest rate was 2%. And if you buy down, you could buy down the interest rate for about $1,000 a point or whatnot. So people were getting interest rates at 1% for these houses. So builders were extremely happy. And all of this stuff was like, you could get like a brand new house and pay like $1,500 a month for your mortgage payment. Now, the interest rate, because we had to curtail inflation in a way that we did that was increasing the interest rate. We had the interest rate right now is about 7%. So in the span of about 4 years, it's almost quadrupled. I like when I got my house, I was at a 7.5% interest rate. So, and that was at the height of home buying in October 2023. So from that time, in that 3 year span from October 2020 to October 2023, the rates went up basically quadruple from 2% to 7.5. So I can't blame Biden for that because he really didn't get the best hand dealt to him from an economic standpoint. But I do agree with you that I think that she's very centrist kind of Democrat. I will say what has me kind of excited though, at least for her campaign, is that she's raised 100 million in donations so far since Biden dropped out. So, and that was 16 hours ago. So I'm sure that more people have donated. And then of course she's getting the backing of quite a few different Democratic backers, and then also even some political back or non-political political backers, just kind of in pop culture. And so I think that that is a good sign, but I really think it depends on her choosing a straight white man in a key state to be the VP. I think that that's going to be the only thing that will really kind of solidify her campaign. But
Facts. It's
I would
gonna
love
come
to hear your
down.
thoughts as we kind of close out here.
No, I was just gonna say it's gonna come down to can she get the niggas behind her, and then can she get the white liberal behind her? You said she raised a couple 100 million. You said 100 million already.
Yeah, so she her donations top 100 million so far.
Hmm.
And so I would say that that's pretty
I'm
cool, but I
interested to
think
see
it
who to
really
get there.
depends. I think the white liberals are going to vote for her. And because I mean even like I'll be honest, I did not like Hillary. Um
Yeah,
but
nobody
like
liked her.
people she
Nobody.
still technically won the popular vote. So
Yes, yes,
I
that's
think
true.
people will
But
vote
you gotta
for
think
her.
about who she was running against, though. Like people, that's almost like the two evils thing, bro. Like, and that's we just keep getting the who's the better of the two evils. Like, we just keep getting that situation again and again and again. Like, this
I
shit don't
think
make
that
sense.
that's true, but I think that especially with women now and seeing women's rights be eroded in several different states, and how that's been impactful. And then also seeing how they're trying to, and I think the Supreme Court is that's the main reason that I'm like pro Kamala, because I'm like Trump could get in
Yeah.
and have two people retire, and then I'm stuck for the rest of my life dealing with like ultra
My boy.
conservative, crazy people. We got like
My
10
boy.
Clarence Thomases. Like, of course, like the Supreme Court ain't that
I
big,
feel
but
like
like,
at that point they would just pack the Supreme Court though. Like they would add more seats. There's no way if he fucked around and got three more seats up there. No, they're not
and
doing
you know
that.
he's not
Whoever's the
above
next
it.
Democratic president, they're going to pack the damn Supreme Court and add more seats to add those more liberal leaning judges because there's no way. I do definitely agree with that. That is a big concern right now, looking towards the future anyway.
Yeah, so that's my biggest concern. But I think that I don't know, like it really is a toss up because I think there's a lot of people that are like, hey, we're not gonna vote Trump. And then there's a lot of people that are like, we don't like Kamala. And
Facts.
I think that it's yeah, like it's really just
Shout out my boy RFK. Please look into it. I'm gonna say it every episode. I'm gonna say it every episode. Look into the boy. I know he not. People got their viewpoints on him, but you look at his policies. He has a nice little platform he's running on. I will say, and that includes the talk of reparations. That includes talking about tax breaks. It's a lot of things he's got on there that
Mhm.
and he's talking about unity. None of them's talking about unity right now. He's trying to bring everybody together. So I respect that.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, and I think that I I really don't know
That's
where
who need
we're
to be.
going at this point. All I know is I can work anywhere in the world, so
Listen, I'm
I hope
good.
that y'all vote right because I'm gonna be going about 7 hours north to Toronto if things start going crazy in
Trudeau
this
gonna fuck
country.
with you too, my boy. Trudeau ain't no good.
So
They do not fuck with Justin
I'm
Trudeau.
gonna either do that or I'm gonna head out to Costa Rica or one of them other
Facts. Yeah,
countries.
one of them. Yeah, facts.
But yeah,
She
like
need RFK. She need to put him at the VP ticket. I know we're about to wrap up real quick, but if she want to win, pick that man RFK up. See what happens.
yeah, so I'll let you sign off real quick. But yeah,
Absolutely.
thank y'all for tuning in for this episode.
Yeah. Thank y'all for checking us out. More content down the road. Next episode, we definitely need to talk about the assassination attempt. There's a lot going on with that right now.
Yeah, I wanted to get into
Yeah,
that. Like that.
yeah. We're gonna chop it up with that for next episode. Hopefully real soon. No cap. But thank y'all for listening. This is the Black Politics Show. Shout y'all out.
All
Bye.
right.